Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 186. Without any delay, start explanation. His spiritual power had only reached the Spirit Sea realm recently. The Spirit Sea rank was not considered very high for his 6-ringed cultivation base. ENCI ordered that he was strictly not allowed to leave the room unless he had achieved a cultivation base of Spirit Abyss. Long Yu understood his teacher's intentions well, so he knew that this was all due to pressure from above. Such uncontrollable power was so terrifying that even the Empire was avoiding him like a taboo. He would, of course, need to put more effort into controlling himself, yet he was feeling slightly troubled at the thought of this rigorous cultivation. For him, spiritual power cultivation was very difficult compared to the tremendous pace he could hone his soul power and bloodline. The group match was carried out as planned. Monster Academy also passed through the first round with ease, to nobody's surprise. The second round was no more suspenseful than the previous. Shrek Academy sent out the trio of Yi Xinglan, Yuan and Yehui, and Yu Jingyu to the competition stage as usual, while Yu Jingyu and Yuan and Yehui participated in the 2-on-2 match as well. Although the opponents were slightly more powerful than Sky Academy's team, the battle was still settled after 4 matches with the result of 5-0. Shrek Academy wiped out the opponents such that they did not even advance to the group match stage. The situation was the same on Monster Academy's side. These two great academies charged into the final 4 of the group category together. There was no doubt that they were destined to fill the final team slots. What sort of sparks would be kindled in the confrontation between Shrek Academy's group without Tang Wulin and Monster Academy's squad? As Tang Wulin's replacement and their strongest fighter, was Yi Xinglan capable of resisting Long Yu's awesome strength? These were the matters that the audience was anticipating. The semi-final went smoothly. The Shrek team's situation remained the same as before, only that the sequence of their contestants was slightly changed so that Yi Xinglan finally got to fight against the most powerful opponent. 5-0. They advanced to the next round with 3 consecutive rounds of 5-0. There was utterly no suspense in that. Monster Academy's team also did not disappoint. They relied on the Dai Yuyang, Zhu Mu, Lin San and the pair of Hua Lantang and Yi Shi. They pushed forward to the final with the same score of 5-0. The competition would rest for 1 day before continuing with the final group battle between the teams from Shrek Academy and Monster Academy. The group category went from not being taken seriously to becoming a topic of heated discussion immediately. The price of admission skyrocketed. Everyone was anticipating the two great academies' ultimate confrontation. Shrek's team was receiving fewer curses compared to the atmosphere in the individual category. They were still capable of regrouping for the battle after their captain was severely injured and achieved such honorable results. This was a group of only 15-year-old youths. They had already fought their way with Shrek Academy's graceful bearing and displayed Shrek's capabilities to the entire Star Luo Empire. Imagine what could happen if this battle group were to face the Monster Academy's battle group in a fight 5 years later. Who would dare to say no one among them could ever achieve Long Yu's magnificence? Thus, though the common people's initial response to them had been fueled by nationalism, their mentality had gradually begun to change, seeing as how powerful opponents could match the powerful fighters on their own side. They were glad to have Long Yu as the mainstay in Monster Academy because it was highly possible that the situation before their eyes would be different without his presence. Even so, they were still anticipating both parties' confrontation. Within the eyes of many sensible people, there was no need to determine the victor and loser of this competition any longer, but even more significantly, this was possibly the most exciting group match in centuries. They could only witness such a competition once in a lifetime and still remember this with great relish for decades to come. In the Grand Star Luo Hotel, there was still no information about Tang Wulin, and he had still not returned. It was as if he had completely vanished. There was utterly no news about him or Mu Yi. The group had noticed that Elder Cai and Wu Zhongkong would leave the hotel early in the morning and return very late every day. However, they still did not bring back any information related to Tang Wulin. Ji Yu stood outside Wu Zhongkong's room every night and waited for his return. He shook his head at her before she went back to her room quietly. He had yet to return if he was alive, and there was no corpse if he was dead, but there was still hope at the very least. We need to have faith. Xie suddenly broke the silence of his companions as he sat at the dining table during dinner. The group's gaze shifted toward him in unison. Xie spoke with a deep voice, "The captain will certainly return safely if we can become the champions tomorrow." This was a leap of faith and also wishful thinking, yet everyone nodded in unison. He would certainly return safely. Gu inhaled a deep breath and spoke with a deep voice, "Let's make plans for tomorrow's strategy. We need not only luck but also skill to defeat the opponents. Xinglan, Yuan and I will be participating in the one-on-one round. We must win the other two matches which Long Yu is not participating in. We will take the initiative by having a result of 2-1. Yuan and Zhengyu will be in the 2-on-2 match. If Long Yu is participating on the opponent's side, forfeit the match and don't compete with them. We shall accomplish the victory at one stroke in the final group match. Long Yu." She paused for a moment at this point, then she spoke with a tone that was unusually determined, "Leave him to me. I'll be distracting him as best as I can. All of you must defeat the rest of the opponents as soon as possible during that period of time. Then, we will combine our forces to deal with Long Yu. As for the specific tactics we'll be using, we'll do this." When the first gleam of sunlight penetrated Star Luo City in the morning, it had already bestowed a sunny day with a warm breeze. The radiant sunlight brightened the blue sky as snow-white clouds floated by occasionally. The refreshing weather gave a carefree sensation that cleansed the people's minds. On the other hand, Star Luo City was extraordinarily busy. Not many people were on the streets as most were staying in their homes or hotels awaiting the group match hailed as the Battle of the Century. The dozens of streets surrounding the Star Luo Coliseum were already so overcrowded with people that even a drop of water couldn't leak out. Some of the onlookers gathered around the Star Luo Coliseum only hoping to listen to the sound of cheering. There were even some rich people holding handfuls of cash in an attempt to buy an expensive entrance ticket even for a standing spot on the inside. There was no doubt that the competition was extremely successful this time for the Star Luo Empire's government as they had managed to make huge profits through the influx of money from tourism, the lottery industry, and the entrance tickets. Even the royals were filled with excitement for today's match. It was an extremely difficult task even for the royal family members to acquire entrance tickets in such a short time if they had not done so earlier. The entrance tickets were priceless. Dai Qianling was feeling as if his blood was boiling with righteous indignation as he sat on the audience platform. He could not help laughing in spite of himself. He was feeling glad that as the emperor, there was always a seat reserved for him whether he had a ticket or not. This was the advantage brought by power and authority. He truly wished that Shrek's team was capable of performing even better today. Shrek Academy had truly proven itself to be what it claimed. He could only imagine the power of Shrek Academy just by witnessing the strength of these 15-year-old youths. He wished to return to his hometown to take a look at the original Star Luo City and the Doluo continent if possible. He also desired to visit the #1 academy in the Doluo continent that was known as Shrek Academy. Perhaps it was even the best academy on the entire Doluo planet. Monster Academy was still lacking in achievements and purity when compared to Shrek Academy. The academy president, ENCI, had arrived earlier. He appeared extremely calm today, but his gaze would occasionally shift towards the direction of the waiting area. He was still very worried about Long Yu. He was not worried if Shrek's group was weak, because then there would be no need for Long Yu to focus his power and the match would go smoothly. However, the power of Shrek's battle group had far exceeded any estimation. It was impossible that Long Yu could defeat this opponent without utilizing his power, but Long Yu could possibly lose control once he devoted all his effort and transformed into the absolutely terrifying Madman Long. If something were to happen to Shrek Academy's team again, then it would perhaps cause a direct confrontation between the two great academies. He was more worried about Shrek Academy than the issues between the Doluo continent and the Star Luo continent. After all, the two continents were situated at a distance. Even if the Doluo continent was infuriated by the diplomatic mission this time, they would still need more time to prepare for any action they wished to take. It was a great trouble for anyone to go to war from across the Great Sea. However, it was different for Shrek Academy. There were many powerhouses there to take action in case of this situation. Then, Monster Academy would be facing an extremely grim trial from a group of students standing at the peak of the world's pyramid. Hence, he had already prepared himself to immediately intervene if Long Yu lost control of himself in this match. ENCI would never again hesitate like he did the other day. He was afraid that Tang Wulin was fraught with grim possibilities, for he understood Long Yu's strength more than anything else. Tang Wulin was considered a tough survivor for not dying on the spot from Long Yu's incessant stomping on his chest. Yet even as such, even a titled Dolor recovery-type Soul Master could not necessarily save Tang Wulin's life when his body was so severely injured. ENCI was also astonished at Mu Yi, who brought Tang Wulin away, because he had yet to clarify his identity. However, he was still greatly astonished by Mu Yi's power and knew fairly well in his heart that he did not have the confidence to defeat him either. This information could startle the entire Star Luo continent if it was spread out, because ENCI was reputed to be the #1 powerhouse on Star Luo continent. It was still an hour away from the match, but the Star Luo Coliseum was already filled to the brink with an extremely excited crowd. Fanger had arrived early as well to make preparation for the commentary later. In order to ensure the safety for contestants on both sides in today's matches, the organized intentionally assigned 4 titled Dolor powerhouses as judges. At the same time, the royal family intentionally declared to the Dolor Continent Federation Diplomatic Corps that the situation that happened previously would never happen again today. The match had yet to begin, but the anxiety had already spread throughout the entire Colosseum. Many in the audience were getting food and water for themselves to replenish their energy, in fear that they would have no time to eat and drink when the match began later. No one knew how long this match would last, but they were secretly hoping that the match would last as long as possible. "They're here," someone shouted aloud as the audiences shifted their gaze to the direction of the waiting area in unison. The group from both sides entered the arena almost back to back. Shrek Academy's green uniform and Monster Academy's red uniform formed an extremely bright contrast. Both sides did not make any intersection, but they entered the arena swiftly one by one and sat down to rest in their own region. The Dragon King Long Yu led Monster Academy's corner, followed by the Tiger King Dai Yuyang, the Wind King Lin San, the Fox King Su Mu, the Wolf King Hua Lantang, the Pagoda King Yi Shi, the Shadow King Ting Ting, and the Spirit King Dai Yuna. All 8 heavenly kings were present. On Shrek Academy's corner, the first seat remained vacant and was followed by Ji Yu Yu, Yi Xinglang, Yuan Yehui, Yu Jingyu, Xie Xie, Xu Xiaoyan, and Xu Lishi. There were a total of 7 people. The mood of the 7 people was obviously far less calm than before. Their eyes were shimmering with a dazzling radiance, but there was a hint of bitterness in their aura. Even Monster Academy's group of students who were their opponents could not help but look sideways. Su Mu squinted and spoke softly. "It seems like it's not going to be easy to deal with Shrek Academy today. Be careful." Everyone except Long Yu nodded gently. Dai Yuana appeared very calm, that was different from her usual active persona. She had been feeling slightly depressed ever since Tang Wulin was severely injured and disappeared after the individual match. She discovered in astonishment that she did not seem to take joy as she watched Tang Wulin almost die under Long Yu's attack. His handsome and young appearance flashed past her mind occasionally. Even if he was an abomination, she felt like this was not a deadly sin. However, she could not blame Long Yu either, for she was the person pestering Long Yu into punishing Tang Wulin after all. Yet, was he truly in trouble? Did he die just like that? She was in an even more depressing mood when she did not see Tang Wulin today. She seemed to have grown so much in a few short days. At the very least, she realized how stubborn she had been in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, those in the audience and friends, welcome to the Star Luo Coliseum. I believe that everyone has already been anticipating today's match for a very long time. This is the final group match for this year's Continental Young High-Ranking Soul Masters Elite competition. At the same time, it's also the confrontation between the 2 strongest academies on 2 continents. It's our Star Luo Continent's Monster Academy versus Dolor Continent's Shrek Academy. There was an added touch of excitement in Fanger's voice without her noticing it. How could she possibly resist the anticipation of this match? Next, we request the pleasure of His Majesty. The audiences were startled when she said that. Was His Majesty giving a speech? This had never happened in the earlier matches. Dai Qianling stood up as his gaze swept past the Star Luo Colosseum. The entire audience stood up in unison at once and placed their right fist across their chest in a gesture of respect to their emperor. I'm very glad to be able to witness such a competition. I'm just as excited as all of you at this exact moment. I'm also a part of the audience anticipating the exciting match. Dai Qianlian spoke with a smile on his face. The reason why I'm speaking is mainly to express my expectation of this match. Monster Academy and Shrek Academy each represented the Star Luo continent and our homeland, the Doluo continent's most powerful academies. I hope that both parties would engage in today's match, taking their friendship before the competition as the foundation of the match. This will be the best way to exchange one's skills and knowledge. The government is going to offer more rewards to motivate both sides for the match. Every participating contestant will be awarded a precious item that will benefit the elevation of your cultivation base regardless of the final result. All right, I announce that the match has begun. The sound of cheering echoed like a mighty torrent in the Star Luo Colosseum at once following Dai Qianling's declaration. Dai Qianling held an extremely prestigious position in the heart of his citizens. He made great efforts to build a prosperous country ever since he was enthroned and managed the empire into flourishing prosperously. He repressed the Green Skeleton Rebellion and robbed them of any opportunity, to the point of even forcing them to take shelter in the nearby borderlands rife with complicated terrains. They could do nothing but linger there as their condition worsened. This feat alone gave him the reputation of being an ingenious monarch. The four judges walked to the center of the competition simultaneously. The leading elder spoke with a deep voice. Will the contestants from both sides for the first match please ascend the stage? Everything was carried out in an even stricter manner as it was the final match. A partition board arose in the waiting area on both sides rapidly to ensure that the other party could not make any targeted arrangement after seeing the members sent out from the opposing group. The partition board was capable of isolating spiritual detection abilities. The gaze of the audience was focused on the waiting area of this corner, and the high-ranking officers on the audience form were no exception. Who was going to fight in the first match? The first person stood up from Shrek Academy's corner was the owner of Stargot Sword Martial Soul and was also the only contestant with a full set of one-word battle armor at the same time. It was Yi Xinglan. A sea of gasps echoed immediately when Yi Xinglan stood up. Sumu, the Fox King Sumu stood up first on Monster Academy's corner. The Fox King was ranked third amongst the 8 Heavenly Kings and was once defeated by Tang Wulin. Both parties walked out of the waiting area simultaneously and headed straight for the competition stage direction. Yi Xinglan did not even take a glance at Sumu's direction. It was as it did not matter at all of who was the opponent to her. Sumu walked forward with great strides. Both people ascended the stage in unison. The first match was important to boost morale, so it was extremely important for both sides. Sumu could not help feeling fearful in his heart when he realized that his opponent was Yi Xinglan. The first match should be fought by Dai Yuyang if they arranged it according to their combat capabilities, even if Long Yu did not make an appearance. However, Dai Yuyang was still the Empire's 4th prince. It would be an extremely huge impact on his status if he were to lose in the first match. Thus, Monster Academy made the arrangement to send out its contestants in this sequence: Sumu, Dai Yuyang, Long Yu. The first 3 great heavenly kings were arranged to participate in the first 3 matches, so one could say that they taking Shrek Academy seriously. Yi Xinglan looked at Sumu expressionlessly. Sumu, on the other hand, looked at her with a burning gaze. There seemed to be sparks flying out of nothingness when the glow in their eyes clashed. The 4 judges drew back to the edge of the competition stage in succession. A great battle was about to break out at any moment. Yi Xinglan watched the match between Tang Wulin and Sumu in the past. She still had a fresh memory about Sumu. He was the Fox King with the 9-tailed fox martial soul. Sumu also possessed the 9-tailed fox bloodline and was extremely powerful. He was the embodiment of power, 5 great halos which were made up of control and assault abilities. Monster Academy has similarly studied about Yi Xinglan before and found that she was undoubtedly an assault-type soul master with an extremely powerful sword martial soul. They learned that she was a 4-ring spirit alloy 1-word battle armor master and that she was exceedingly powerful herself as well. She was most skilled in a frontal assault and the control she had over her sword was one of extreme precision. Sumu once lost to Tang Wulin, so he did not look down upon Yi Xinglan at all. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin. The first round of the final group match. Star God Sword Yi Xinglan versus the Fox King Sumu officially began following the judge's announcement. Radiance flashed in Sumu's eyes as his body seemed to turn into an illusion for a moment. Then, the audiences saw as 5 enormous fox tails bore out from his back as they swayed gently along with 5 soul rings from his tails. His first soul ring rippled apart just as his martial soul was released. The process of releasing his martial soul and soul skill was almost complete within only a mere second. The process that seemed simple was actually a top-tier skill. Yi Xinglan was being her usual self when she dashed in great strides toward Sumu. A white soul ring rippled outward on the ground. It was Sumu's first soul skill, the debilitating halo. The debilitating halo's effect once troubled Tang Wulin a lot. However, Yi Xinglan did not slow down at all when she was faced with the halo. She continued dashing toward her opponent. A sparkling radiance then began shimmering on Sumu's body. As he flung his arms, pieces of his battle armor shot out into the air before they converged toward his body. His battle against Tang Wulin taught him a valuable lesson, so this time around, he decided to put his battle armor right from the very beginning. He refused to be defeated in as sullen a manner as he was the other day. Sumu had already prepared himself to devote all his efforts to deal with today's match to acquire a victory and rectify his tainted reputation. The battle armor covering his body was a spotless white while faint iridescent striations rippled on its surface. It seemed gorgeous as the gentle spiritual radiance shimmered on its surface. His helm was slightly larger than those on regular battle armor. It completely covered his head and a dazzling jewel was encrusted in the middle of the helmet. Spiritual power was something extremely important to control-type soul masters, and to make full use of this, his battle armor had an exceedingly powerful amplification effect on his spiritual power. The only reason Tang Wulin managed to defeat him the other day was because his battle armor was not that powerful in the defense department. The debilitating halo that he had already released glowed brightly as the battle armor covered his body. The range of his debilitating halo that was initially 50 meters suddenly instantly increased tremendously, enshrouding Yi Xinglan in it. It reduced Yi Xinglan's speed instantly from its influence. It was also at this moment that starlight began glowing on her body. Naturally, since the opponent had already brought out his battle armor, she did not have to hesitate bringing hers out. Yi Xinglan's body flashed past and soon, her entire being was already mid-air. Soon, the starlight that had appeared so many times in the past bloomed once more. It was her first soul skill, Sword God Star. Yi Xinglan's speed increased exponentially as she fused with her sword, becoming one in the air. She stretched herself across the distance of 100 meters almost instantly and arrived directly before her opponent. Had her sword skill already achieved such a level? Sumu could not help feeling startled as he watched the sword's radiance expanding before himself. Yi Xinglan had never launched this human sword fusion skill in the earlier matches. As it turned out, she had been concealing her power all along. Although Sumu was startled, his reaction did not slow down at all. The second and third soul ring on his body began shimmering simultaneously. His second soul skill, the soul power stripping halo, was capable of exhausting his opponent's soul power. His third soul skill, the reversal halo, was also a powerful soul skill that Sumu was most adept at. He could easily reverse any form of attack launched against him that did not exceed the limit of his endurance by too much. However, it was also at this moment when Yi Xinglan suddenly changed. Just as her starlight appeared to almost collide with the reversal halo, it suddenly soared into the sky and dashed 5 meters upward before it cut through the sky with a peculiar arc. She dodged it? She could actually control her abilities when she was one with the sword to that extent? Then, Sumu witnessed an even more terrifying scene unfold before his eyes. The starlight suddenly diffused and he could indistinctly see the fourth soul ring on Yi Xinglan's body glowing brightly. Then, An endless array of starlight burst from her body, but instead of shooting at his body, they shot toward the reversal halo that was heading toward her feet. Oh no! Sumu was shocked. He could not launch his second reversal halo before his first halo vanished. He did not even hesitate slightly as the fourth soul ring on his body glowed radiantly. Everything surrounding his body instantly sank into a pitch-black darkness. It was also at this moment when countless radiant rays shone before his body and bore into the devouring dark world of his. If Sumu was even a little slower, the sword's radiance would have struck his body. Yi Xinglan made use of Sumu's own reversal halo to find the best angle and dropped her sword meteor shower onto the reverse halo so the angle it rebounded at aimed directly toward Sumu. If not for Sumu's impeccable timing when launching his devouring halo, he would be in deep trouble just from receiving that one strike, especially since her sword meteor shower was amplified by her battle armor. Yi Xinglan had almost already expected Sumu's response earlier. She swayed her body as a total of 13 rays of radiance from her sword surged skyward. The 13 rays transformed into an ultra-large star god sword in midair as Yi Xinglan transformed herself into the final ray of radiance, fusing with the other 13. The star god sword was suspended in the air with its blade pointing downward. Instantly, a radiance resembling the shape of a star bloomed on its hilt before it descended from the sky. Yi Xinglan's was simply too swift. Her sword meteor shower had yet to end, but this terrifying, gigantic star god sword that seemed as if it could pierce through the world had already arrived atop Sumu's head. Had she already reached such a level of control of her martial soul? Just as the star god sword descended, Sumu simultaneously launched the one power that gave him his title as one of Monster Academy's 8 heavenly kings. Radiant rings suddenly bloomed with his body as their center. 5 soul rings then began glowing like ignited torches as 5 dazzling rays rose, enlarging the original devouring halo. The first white halo was the debilitating halo. The second iridescent halo was the soul power stripping halo. The third dark green halo was the reversal halo. The fourth black halo was the devouring halo. The fifth golden halo was the destruction halo. 5 great soul rings and 5 great soul skills instantly merged into one and transformed into an enormous tornado that swirled violently in the sky. 5 different attribute-related, debilitating and offensive skills instantly burst out. Tang Wulin once faced such an attack in the past and had to rely on his bloodline suppression effect to finally defeat Sumu. There was no doubt that Yi Xinglan did not possess this bloodline suppression ability over Sumu, but she had her battle armor. The giant sword that descended from the sky did not pause at all. Instead, it bored straight into that enormous tornado and immediately, a speck of golden light ignited the pitch-black vortex. Then suddenly, dozens of specks began appearing, then hundreds. If Sumu's earlier attack was described as a black hole, then his vortex had just turned into a galaxy. Boom, the intense energy fluctuations transformed into a terrifying storm that broke out. The 4 judges standing in the surroundings had already subconsciously taken a step forward when both parties began fighting to be prepared to interfere at any time. At present, they had no choice but to launch their own defenses to resist the terrifying airflow that blew against their faces. The protective shield on the competition stage was shimmering with a radiance that made it seem as it would all shatter at any moment. The 2 figures parted. Yi Xinglan touched the ground steadily after the golden light flashed, her star god sword clutched in her hand behind her. Her body shimmered faintly with a multicolored radiance that originated from the opponent's negative energy. Sumu was not feeling well either. There was no way to tell the color of his face because of the helmet. However, the people could clearly see a deep gash from the sword stretching from his right shoulder to his lower left torso. The gash was cut deep into the battle armor and it was rippling with faint starlight. It was very obvious that Yi Xinglan was under the effects of his 5 overlapping soul skills, but he was also slashed by Yi Xinglan. Both parties had suffered losses. Dai Yuyang, who sat in the waiting area, could not help frowning when he saw this. He had a very good understanding of Sumu's abilities. His most powerful attack was his 5 rings as one which relied on his bloodline and natural talent to trigger the formation of a 5-ring tornado. Even Long Yu would tread carefully when facing such an attack, what more one that was amplified by Sumu's battle armor. However, he was still a control-type Soul Master after all and was most skilled in exercising control. He would only be in trouble when his opponent broke through his most powerful attack. Dai Yuyan concluded that he did not have the ability to break through Mu Yi's destruction tornado, and yet, Yi Xinglan managed to pull it off. The defense of Su Mu's battle armor was limited to amplify his spiritual power. He was still fine after being slashed by the sword, but it was difficult to predict if his battle armor could still protect him against another slash. Despite being affected by the negative soul ring effects of slow, soul power stripping, devour, destroy, and the others, Yi Xinglan was shining with dazzling starlight. Every beam of light was like a sharp sword. They were severing the negative soul ring effects with blinding speed. Obviously, her battle armor was incredibly durable, as expected of armor crafted from spirit alloy. It was a rank more powerful than ordinary battle armor in terms of offense and defense. It also had the ability to continue evolving in the future. This must have been the inner secret of Shrek Academy. Dai Yuyan had a feeling that the Spirit Alloy one-word battle armor was the current method of crafting armor employed by Shrek Academy. Yi Xinglan raised the Star God sword slowly, and she suddenly switched to a two-handed grip. She took half a step with her left foot and paused. With both her hands on the sword's hilt, she pointed the tip of the sword toward the lower right part of her body. Instantly, the sparkles of starlight on her body shone brightly. Her entire person seemed to have transformed into a star in an instant, and she moved no more. Su Mu's ragged breathing could only be heard by himself as he hid under his battle armor. She was too powerful. The strength of this opponent was too great. Contrary to Dai Yuyan's imagination, the slash just now had indeed broken open his battle armor. In fact, his armor had already taken an enormous amount of damage. There was already a small crack in it. That overwhelming sword's consciousness plunged directly into his body and was wreaking havoc within him. As a control system battle soul master, Su Mu's body was far less forceful compared to an assault system battle soul master. Now, he could only manage these attacks with his Soul King ranked soul power. He somehow managed to compress the sword's consciousness and wanted to expel it from his body. However, Yi Xinglan's sword's consciousness seemed to have substance. Everywhere it went, it brought with it a powerful destructive force. If he could calm his heart down, he could still fight this with his cultivation base. Then again, if he was facing the powerful Yi Xinglan, how could he resolve his own problems on a firm footing? Obviously, Yi Xinglan knew about the condition he was in. That was why she was standing there and gathering her energy for now. While she stored her energy, the negative effects on her body vanished. Her own aura continued to increase at a tremendous rate. Yi Xinglan learned energy storing from observing Xie Xie's battle. Throughout the process of storing energy, she merged her imposing mana, sword's consciousness, soul power, and battle armor together. Through the coordination between her battle armor and the star, she absorbed external power to strengthen herself. Yi Xinglan, in her current condition, could instantly launch counterattacks the moment she was confronted. For anyone facing her while she was in such a state, it would be better to attack her as soon as possible. If her opponent was too slow to do so, they would most likely be facing a terrifying slash after the energy was gathered. However, she had timed it precisely. When she had started storing energy, Su Mu was still battling with the sword's consciousness she left inside his body. When he finally managed to suppress it somewhat after going through much trouble, the Star God sword in Yi Xinglan's grasp was already a brilliant gold. The spots of starlight on her body vaguely formed a constellation map. The terrifying force even seemed to distort the very air. Su Mu's expression changed drastically. He could feel that this impending slash would definitely not be weaker than the one which descended from the skies. With Yi Xinglan's control over her Star God sword, this attack would most probably land on the same spot on his body. If that were the case, his battle armor would disintegrate instantly, possibly taking his body with it. As a control system battle soul master and the brains of the team, even though Su Mu was loath to do so, he had no choice but to admit that the strength of this opponent was greater than his own. This was the first time in his life that he witnessed a sword's consciousness as powerful as hers. "I yield." He spouted those words with slight difficulty. The sword's energy flashed once, as if it had been triggered. It then fired past Sumu, shooting out for 100 meters and before striking the soul barrier with a series of explosions. The spot where Yi Xinglan stopped happened to be next to Sumu. Even if the sword's beam was not aimed at him, Sumu could still feel chills traveling down his body. It was the sword's consciousness which had plunged into his body some moments ago. It seemed to have been dragged along as it erupted instantly. He grunted. Sumu could not help but spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. He had been injured internally. "You," Sumu growled. Yi Xinglan simply ignored him. She returned the sword into her body, turned around and walked down the stage. From the view of the spectators, after her opponent yielded, Yi Xinglan did not aim her attack at Sumu. Only Sumu himself knew that the remaining sword's consciousness in his body had been affected by Yi Xinglan's slash just now and had burst immediately. His veins were already injured. This would inevitably affect his upcoming matches. He would never believe that the detonation of the sword's consciousness was just a coincidence. The first match of the solo competition, victory goes to Shrek Academy. The referee's announcement had a hint of shock. This was a showdown between youths under the age of 20. Young people nowadays were truly amazing. The spectators' stands were also buzzing with discussion. Although everybody could have guessed that even if Monster Academy could defeat Shrek Academy, it would be highly improbable that they could defeat them completely. However, they lost in the very first match, quickly having to forfeit. This had shaken the audience quite a bit. The strength of Shrek Academy's contestant Yi Xinglan was truly incredible. This time, Sumu did not withhold his battle armor. He had unleashed his battle armor the moment he stepped on stage, but he had still lost the match. Even the fusion of his 5 great soul skills under the enhancement of his battle armor was unable to completely block Yi Xinglan's slash. What kind of cultivation base was this? When she returned to the waiting area, Yi Xinglan returned to her own seat. He coughed softly twice and took out a handkerchief to wipe her mouth. Only Ji Yu, who was beside her, could see that Yi Xinglan's handkerchief was stained by a spot of red. Destruction Storm was not so easily endured. Her battle armor too did not completely filter out her opponent's attack. She was also injured. Xu Lixi hastily handed her 2 recovery pork buns. Yi Xinglan ate them quickly. If it was said that support system soul masters were the best companions in the battlefield, then food-type tool soul masters would be the best companions at any time. In terms of combat capabilities, they were not as powerful as support system soul masters. However, in terms of continuous enhancement, healing, and support, they had their own advantages. Ji Yu shot Yi Xinglan a concerned gaze. Yi Xinglan shook her head lightly. Her lips twitched slightly as she projected her voice, "He's more injured than I am. I'm okay." Sumu was undoubtedly very smart since he made the decision to yield even though there was still a possibility of him launching a counterattack. However, if he did that, even if he did not die, he would have lost a layer of skin. He would definitely have been rendered unable to participate in the upcoming matches. He could not decipher Yi Xinglan's condition back then. He could not determine if his final attack could ward off Yi Xinglan's attack. That was why he chose to surrender. This was a team competition, after all. The outcome of a single match might not determine the final results. Yi Xinglan had barely sat down when Yuan and Yehui already stood up. She had been waiting too long for this match. In her heart, there were too many things which she would have liked to let loose explosively. She clearly remembered the fellow who held a card at the doors of Shrek Academy's cafeteria with the hopes of exchanging it for some money for food back then. She also clearly remembered that fellow who had blocked her way because of Xie Xie. She even remembered the fellow who defeated her over and over again on the competition stage, but had also given her a stronger will to fight every time. He's not here now, but we still are. He will definitely come back. We'll welcome him with our victory. Captain, we're waiting for your return. With great strides, Yuan and Yehui walked straight toward the competition stage. On Monster Academy's side, Tiger King Dai Yuyang stood up. He wore a grim expression as he walked toward the ring. Sumu's injuries were not merely superficial, and he had taken some medicine. He sat down to focus his spirits and rest. As the Master Control Soul Master of their team, Sumu's injuries would definitely affect the upcoming matches. He was the closest to Sumu, and Sumu was injured after his 2 matches with Shrek Academy. The first match, where he had injured his tail, was especially grievous. He was still bearing a grudge. The second match of the solo competition was Yuan Yehue vs Dai Yuyang. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.